There we go. For y'all. Well, I guess that's it. A whopping 4 students. It looks like I am recording and sharing and all that good stuff. So I think we're good to go. Am I sharing? Oh, I'm not sharing. No, so I am sharing. You are sharing. You are screen sharing. Okay, that's good. So, welcome everybody. Today is 420, April April 20th, 2021. 2020. It is 1 o'clock. Today's Tuesday, right? Tuesday, April 20th. You guys are biology 1208, section 91. And today is our last meeting before your practical, which is next week. And I think I already have it set up on my courses. Let's see. For you guys to, I think the date or whatever is good. Yeah, so your practicals next week, and it's over, the second half of the course, et cetera, et cetera. And let me find you guys right here. Here's your class. And scroll. Yeah, scroll. That's a week from today, April 27th. See, next week, right there. And it's gonna be just like the midterm. You have to be able to Zoom, okay? Live Zoom, live feed. That's how I proctor the course. If you can't Zoom, you don't get credit, okay? And you gotta log on to my courses at 1 o'clock. Log on to the Zoom meeting beforehand, 5 or 10 minutes before, so you can get all your ducks in a row, so to speak, for your Zoom connection. You Zoom first. Once you're on your Zoom, and get ready to log on to my courses, and then at 1 o'clock sharp on that Tuesday, you start your exam, and it'll be 25 questions, just like the midterm. 25 questions, multiple choice, and it's gonna be pictures of stuff that you've already seen, and hopefully, multiple choice questions you answer it. And that's it. It's gonna be over. See right here: human bones, human muscles, human organs, and fetal pig anatomy. We've done everything so far except for the fetal pig anatomy, and so that's what we're going to do today. And so hopefully you'll be ready for next week. So, here's your table of contents. Remember all this stuff. You get your handouts, and then fetal pig dissection. Well, let me go over the handouts first, because there is a pig handout. I kind of wanted to. Oh, look, we got somebody new. Oh, somebody decided to show up to class this week. Anyway, hang on. So I need a drink. How convenient is that? Today we're going to do the pig. Or normally we would dissect the pig in lab and all that kind of stuff, but we can't. Social distance and all that kind of crap. So we can't do that this semester. So what I did is I I have a PowerPoint. That's what you're going to study. Actually, 2 PowerPoints of dissected pigs, and it's got everything labeled. And study that, and you know, I'll use those images to ask you questions. So like half of your exam next week is going to be over the fetal pig dissection. So half of it is this human stuff, and the other half is going to be the fetal pig anatomy. Now, like I said, as far as the handouts, I want to show you the handout. We're not really going to use it. Well, I would, let me just kind of show you what it is. Okay, there's a link, fetal pig wait, where am I? Yeah, right here. Yeah, this is just, all this is handouts. And then, okay, there's 3. Fetal pig handout, and fetal pig anterior vessels, fetal pig posterior vessels. And let's look at these. I think I have them downloaded on my computer already. I don't want to download them again. So let me open them. So I'm going to go to my documents here, I think. That's what I want to do. Let's see, pig should be right there. Yeah, I got all the stuff downloaded already. These are the 3 handouts, and these are the 2 PowerPoints. So the handout, this is what I used to give all my students, and actually the pages are not really in order. It's like, well, last page to first page or whatever. But here's the first page, and basically what it is you know, a list of organs and structures the students are challenged to find on the pig. And it's, you know, things in bold print and italics, you know, that's, you know, I told you make sure you can find all that kind of stuff. And that's written descriptions of everything like that. This is kind of like general anatomy. And then the second page here continues on, and then it gets into the female reproductive anatomy. And it has a figure 6, which is coming up. It talks about some female stuff, and figure 7 is the male stuff. Here's kind of like a general image, illustration, drawing, whatever you want to call it, of the pig. It's not real great. I don't use this on the test. I'll use actually pictures of the real thing. This is kind of there for reference. And then here's the picture, figure 6 and 7 of the female and male, and the detail in the pelvis and stuff for the reproductive or urogenital things. And again, it's just kind of there for reference. And so I would have the students, you know, look at that. And it shows you some blood vessels, but not really good. And so I decided to include 2 additional handouts to kind of profile the blood vessels. I have fetal pig posterior vessels and fetal pig anterior vessels. And what this is basically is, if you look at your pig like this, you know, say like this was a human, you know, you got, this is a human standing up, this would be superior, right? Here's the diaphragm. This would be superior and this would be inferior, but it's a pig, you know, it's like, its axis isn't like this, its axis is like this. So this is the diaphragm, this is everything that's anterior to the diaphragm, this is everything that's posterior to the diaphragm. So I have it broken down into anterior vessels, everything above the diaphragm, right here, or in front of the diaphragm, I guess, for the pig. And then everything down here, posterior vessels. And so, because remember the human model, we kind of did it like that, superior and inferior, or I think I called it branches of the aortic arch or something like that, and then abdominal or something like that. It's basically stuff on either side of the diaphragm. And so I do it the same way. And so, but just show you the blood vessels. And it's, again, this is going to be there for reference. It's kind of, you know, so you can kind of see the forest for the trees kind of deal. Let me just show you this again, just for reference. pig. The anterior vessels. This is a Williams original art. I drew this and labeled it and put together this little key for you. And I used to give these to the students, again, for reference. And these are, it says anterior vessels. So this is like everything in the thoracic body cavity. These are all the arteries and these are all the veins. And in the pig, the fetal pig, the arteries are all injected with red latex. So that's how you know what arteries and arteries, red, just for reference, right? And then all the veins are injected with blue latex. So they look different. So the student can, figure out which one's which, for a little bit easier. And so there's a lot of detail in here, like overkill compared to what you're really going to be able to see in our lab. I was just kind of a little, I guess, overzealous, putting this thing together, thinking that everybody can find all this stuff. But it's good to kind of refer to. What we have here, these are the arteries. Imagine the heart's been removed. So imagine the heart's like right here. And this is the aortic arch, okay, coming out like that. And here's the pulmonary trunk. And so there's some unique things associated with the fetal pig. Fetal pig hadn't been born yet. So since the pig isn't born, it's not eating, it's not breathing. And so the circulatory system's going to reflect that. As far as the breathing part, the pulmonary circuit, for blood to the lungs is changed. Because remember, the pulmonary trunk, that's what would split into the right and left pulmonary arteries, carrying deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Well, that's, you don't want to do that in the fetus because the lungs aren't really working. But whether it's a pig or a human, all mammals are the exact same way. The pulmonary trunk bypasses. That's why I did this little dot, 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 and then connecting right here. This is the aortic arch. Aortic arch, just like a human aortic arch. But in the fetus, the pulmonary trunk bypasses the lungs. This is the right and left pulmonary arteries. It bypasses the lungs by connecting to the aortic arch by this little connection right here, number 12. That's the ductus arteriosus, I think, right here. See that? And that's what happens. When you're a fetus, the blood bypasses the lungs by this little connection. And it exists until you're born and take that first breath. And when you take that first breath, it closes, and then it forces blood to go into the lungs. Okay? And then that little closed ductus arteriosus exists as like a little ligament there, after you're born and as an adult. Okay. Now, everything else is pretty much straightforward, although you look, there are some differences here in the arteries. Here's the aortic arch. You have an aortic arch, or like ascending aortic arch, and then thoracic aorta, all that kind of thing. But remember, in the human, there were 3 branches of the aortic arch, but in the pig, there's only 2. The pig has a brachiocephalic trunk right here, and then a left subclavian. Remember, the human had a brachiocephalic trunk, a left common carotid, and a left subclavian. Okay, these 2 vessels right here, these are the common carotid. So you imagine the trachea right here. These are the vessels on either side of the trachea, which would be the right and left common carotid arteries. And then this is the right subclavian, which is real short because this is going out to the arm, this is going out to the arm. So this is the subclavian here, and then this little subclavian there. And all these other branches that are way out there, you're probably not going to see. What you need to know, I'm going to show you in a minute, is what you're going to see on the PowerPoints. And so if it's not on the PowerPoints, don't worry about it, because I'm only going to ask you what's on the PowerPoint. But again, this is kind of here for reference. And since I went through the trouble of drawing this for you guys, that's kind of what felt obligated to show it to you. Anyway, here's the arteries. And these are the veins. The veins, I drew them separate because it gets kind of clustered, because you have the arteries and then the veins are actually on top of the arteries. And so it's real kind of mixed up. So I separate them. And these are, be like the blue ones, on there. There's the, and they're in the human, the main one that's kind of dumping in and draining the head and the neck and the anterior, appendages, right, or superior appendages in the human. That all comes together to form the superior vena cava. Well, again, the pig is not oriented superior, inferior, it's anterior, posterior. So this is called the, not the superior vena cava, but the anterior vena cava, number 20. See, wait, no, 17. The anterior vena cava. So the anterior vena cava, really, I mean, it's the same thing as the superior vena cava, but we call it anterior since it's in a pig. Okay. And likewise, it's formed from these two big fat branches right here. See, it's kind of splits into two. That's the right and left brachiocephalic veins. 20. Wait, is that right? Yeah, 20. Yeah, see, right brachiocephalic vein. This would be the right one right here, and then this would be the left one right here. And then these other little branches associated with it. The internal jugulars, right here in the center, that would be the trachea. So right here would be the trachea, right there would be the trachea. So internal jugulars, right, running parallel with the common carotids. And then these are the external jugulars. And then these are the ones going out to the arms and so forth. Anyway, just for reference, I'm not going to ask you questions about this diagram specifically on the test, but some of the vessels that you see in the PowerPoint will be on here. So if you kind of want to see how they're all related, you can refer to this. Okay, so there's that and that. And let's look at the posterior vessels real quick. Again, I drew it, kind of separate. These are all the arteries that be injected red, and these are all the veins injected blue. I clipped it off right here and here. That's where the diaphragm will be. Diaphragm right here, diaphragm right there. And again, this is the abdominal aorta, not the inferior vena cava, but the posterior vena cava. Because the pig has a horizontal axis. So that's what, number 15, is that what it says? 15, yeah. See, posterior vena cava. And then number 1, abdominal aorta, same kind of deal. And it's a lot like the human, and really all mammals are pretty much built the same as far as branches of the abdominal aorta. There's 3 unpaired branches, 1, 2, 3, celiac trunk, and not a superior mesenteric, but an anterior mesenteric. So number 11 should say anterior mesenteric, but it does the same thing. It supplies blood to the small intestine. And this little one going to the large intestine, that's the posterior mesenteric. And then these are the branches of the celiac trunk, going to the liver, going to the spleen, going to the stomach. So in turn would be the hepatic, splenic, and gastric arteries. Okay. And then now this right here, it's a little bit different because remember down in here we had common iliac, external iliac, internal iliac. Well, in the pigs don't have a common iliac. They have external iliacs, these big ones right here, number 6, and then they have internal iliacs, number 10. See that internal iliac? This is the right one, that's the left one. Now, then you have this extra thing right here, all right? These things, number 9. Again, the pig isn't eating anything. These 2 vessels come from the internal iliacs and form the umbilical arteries. And then they're going to go up towards the belly button and on the inside of the belly button and then form the umbilical cord outside of that. So number 9, this would be the left umbilical artery, and then right here is the right umbilical artery. And this is the right internal iliac, and that's the left internal iliac. And you can it's really easy to find because these umbilicals are on either side of the urinary bladder. When we open up the pig and you look inside, they're really easy to find. But main thing I was wanting to show you, 2 things. No common iliac, but you have an addition of umbilical vein arteries. These are right and left umbilical arteries. Now over here, this is the diaphragm right here. And remember, right underneath the diaphragm, that's where the liver is going to be. And then these are the veins that are draining the liver, the hepatic veins. And then This, number 18, this is the umbilical vein. The umbilical vein comes from the umbilical cord, and it's like comes from the umbilical cord, goes through the belly button, right? And then right about where the bladder is connected, it comes down and it's entered the body cavity and it's headed up towards the liver. And this is it. This is the umbilical. You have one umbilical vein. Pigs and humans, exact same way. The umbilical vein comes in like this, and it merges with this vessel right here. This is the hepatic portal. Remember, the hepatic portal vein is formed from the union of the gastrosplenic vein and the anterior mesenteric vein, which drains the small intestine. See how I draw it all kind of splayed out like that? That's the many, many branches you have of the mesenteric vessels. That's what this is, superior mesenteric or anterior mesenteric arteries, and these are anterior mesenteric veins. And then this is the gastrosplenic vein coming back. So where you have the anterior mesenteric vein and gastrosplenic vein coming together, that forms the hepatic portal. Remember, the hepatic portal goes to the liver, but again, you got this vein coming from the mother. And what it is, remember, the pig's not eating, but what's the liver doing? The liver is where you get all your nutrients and stuff, right? So this is like stuff coming from mom, but it actually bypass. It doesn't really need to go to the liver, right? Because the fetus isn't eating, the mom's eating, and she gets all her nutrients in her blood. And so it's basically piping it to the pig. And then you get this little connection right here that's actually merges with the hepatic portal. This little connection is only in a fetus. It's called the ductus arteriosus. You had, or a ductus venosus. In a ductus arteriosus, now you have a ductus venosus, number 17. Right here, see that ductus venosus? That ductus venosus is a connection, basically, with the umbilical vein and hepatic portal vein dump into the inferior vena cava. Now, I've told you all that stuff. You're not going to see this on the PowerPoint. It's just, if you're curious and want to know what I was doing, I kind of drew it for you to kind of show you. I guess it's beyond the complexity of this course, Biology 1208, to do this. If you guys, depends on what your major is. If you're pre-med, pre-dent, pre-vet, some kind of pre-professional, whatever, then you're probably going to want to take a more advanced anatomy. And I teach an advanced anatomy normally in the spring. And I haven't offered it in a couple of years because, different reasons, but there's been kind of a push for me to offer it again. So I have some pre-med students that are kind of, I want to take comparative anatomy. And so not in the fall, but spring of 2021, I'm going to offer comparative vertebrate anatomy where you can learn detail. And that's the anatomy you got to take if you want to get into medical school or vet school or whatever kind of school where you take gross anatomy. And that's the one that you got to have. And anyway, so if you're interested, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. If you're going to be here next year for your sophomore level, take some sophomore level biologies, right? I'm kind of putting the word out. I'm going to put that bug into some students' ears, some freshman students' ears, that next year Mr. Williams is going to offer comparative anatomy. And that's the anatomy. We're actually, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to meet in lab, and we're going to dissect 3 animals. We're going to dissect a shark, we're going to dissect a mud puppy, and we're going to dissect a cat. And so it's, it's an advanced anatomy for that. Now, a lot of people would assume that, you take like human anatomy because I'm going to medical school and work on humans. No, the human anatomy we have on this campus is very, very watered down. That's what the nurses take. The comparative anatomy is the anatomy of all vertebrates. It's comparative vertebrate anatomy. So you learn the anatomy of fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, the whole thing. So you know that. I mean, you teach human anatomy after that, because it's a more thorough, deep understanding of the vertebrate anatomy. And so that, that's why the pre-vets want to take it too. And I usually tell students, you can't get into medical school without taking comparative anatomy at some point. And you probably would want to take it with me opposed to, somebody else, somewhere else, I think my course is pretty good. As a matter of fact, I wrote parts of the book. So anyway, something to kind of keep in the back of your mind. If you have questions about that, get with me. You know how to get in touch with me. And then also maybe next year, our student organizations can get back into full swing again, because we actually have student organizations on campus. This year, things have been just kind of not happening, but there's a Pre-Professional Health Majors Association, PPHMA. Have y'all heard of that? Let me show you something. I'm kind of getting off on a tangent. See this? You ever heard of this? You guys see that? PPHMA? Pre-Professional Health Majors Association. It's pre-med, pre-dent, pre-vet, pre-pharmacy, and pre-physical therapy. If you're going to be a doctor of some sort, that's your organization. And so hopefully in the fall next year, we can start meeting again and do something. And so you guys are going to want to be involved with that. Okay. I know that's another word that needs to get out and spread around. So do all that. Anyway, so I think that, these are your vessels. And like I said, it's there for reference. Let's look at the pig. Let me show you the PowerPoint. There's 2 PowerPoints, pig dissection part 1, pig dissection part 2. Now these, I did not make these PowerPoints. Although my names are on them, I didn't make them. Actually, a former student of mine that was in biology 1208, you're in your class that you're in right now, he made them. He was just like really a really good student. He was really into the course, and he was, really, I guess, excited about it and really committed, And he put together these PowerPoints and he showed them to me. And I said, man, these are fantastic. I said, can I have copies of them? I can use them to teach. He said, oh, sure, Mr. Williams. And he's a doctor now somewhere. I can't remember his name to save my life, but I could picture his face. I just can't remember his name. I guess if I could figure it out if I go back and look him up, but I just can't remember. But he made both these PowerPoints. Actually, the first one he made, and then he wasn't satisfied with it, I guess, but it's still pretty good. But then he made a second one. But what I want to do is I want to look at the second one first, because it has some detail I want to show you, and then we'll look at the part 2 second. So let's look at this one. Again, these are on your, right here somewhere. No, wait, this is, these are the handouts. If you go to where it says Fetal Pig Dissection, click on that, and that's where these are. You can open them, download them, have them to yourself so you kind of to study or whatever. But here's this one. Let me do this. And let's do this like that. Yeah, like I said, it has my name on it, but like I said, I didn't do this. He did this. And but it's Fetal Pig Dissection 2. This is the first one I want to look at. The reason I want to look at this one first, because this version that he did, he has a picture of the pig. Now, I don't know if he took these he acquired these pictures somewhere, and then he labeled them based on this diagram he found from somewhere. And I thought it was good because it kind of shows you what the pig looked like. It's not like a nice pretty model or a drawing. It's kind of, oh my God, it looks like a mess. But it points out the thymus, right? And if you, what's the thymus? Well, that's what that handout is. You can read about the thymus. It's a gland, right? And that kind of shows you where it should be and so forth. So you kind of get your bearings, okay? So this, and then again, for your practical, I will use these pictures. And basically I'll point to stuff just like this, but I'll say, what is this? It'll be multiple choice, etc. But this is the thymus. Here it shows you the diaphragm. All this stuff right here is just not in the image, so you got to kind of skip over that. Next is some arteries. Again, you can refer to that diagram. You've got your aortic arch, brachiocephalic. A stands for artery, but remember, I like to call it a brachiocephalic trunk. It branches into the common carotids, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, you kind of see them. This is, supposed to be red, you can kind of see the blue. That's kind of how your pig is. It's not really nice and pretty like your diagrams here, but you can see what it would really look like. And your dissected pigs end up looking a lot like this. Here we are a little bit deeper. This is like in a pelvic region, some blood vessels. Okay. Let me see. I'm gonna hide that. Okay. Here, yeah, I knew there was an issue. Here it says inferior vena cava. I mean, that's okay, but real technically on the pig, it should be the posterior vena cava. Inferior is what you would say in a human. But anyway, so it's the same blood vessel. And then the abdominal aorta, and then the branches of which external, internal iliacs, etc. And remember, there are no common iliac arteries. Do they show you? I don't know if they should even show you that. They show you the external and internal. Here's the bladder. Remember I told you the umbilical arteries on either side of the bladder, and you see that again. But here's the bladder, and then there's the. Well, they don't point that out. Oh no, they do right here, and here. See here and here. That's pretty good, right there. And then some of the veins up around in the throat. They don't here. This is the anterior vena cava, but they don't label that. But they show you the right and left brachiocephalic veins here and here, and then the branches of which internal jugulars, external jugulars, etc. So that's pretty good. And here's just some general stuff. Here's your trachea and thyroid cartilage, not thyroid gland, thyroid cartilage. It's something completely different. All right. And then some organs in the abdominal body cavity. Here's your all this brown up there, a whole thing. This big liver. You can see a little bitty gallbladder right there and there. This blue thing is not labeled, but that's the umbilical vein. It's not shown in here, but anyway, that's that. And then you can see how he's got it lifted up. It's to show stuff underneath the liver. And this is stomach, and then this kind of stuff right there. That's all pancreas. The big flat organ right here, that's your spleen. And then you get all kinds of intestine in here. Most of it's small intestine, and then you got some little pieces of large intestine over here at the top. Okay. And then here's some male structures. Get your bearings. You can see the bottom of the kidneys there. That's here and here. Ureters kind of descending down from the kidneys. And they're headed, towards the bladder, right? So here's the bladder, and the ureters are going to connect to the bladder. Remember, the bladder is drained by the urethra, so that's all kind of coming together right there. And the urethra, it's going to segue to the penis leaving the body. So this is all penis coming out like that. Now, all the body wall has been removed. So you basically see bladder, urethra, then penis. All right. Now, the pelvic cavity has been open. So you can see it. And this is right before the urethra is leaving the pelvic body cavity. There's two glands right there on either side. Those are called the bulbourethral glands. Here's the testis and the epididymis. See this testis right there and the epididymis right there. Okay. And what else? Spermatic cord. It's like what all of this is contained inside of that. They don't really point it out over here, or do they? I don't see it, no, they didn't point it out over there. Anyway, that's the male. And then just a different angle, basically, some other stuff. You can see the kidneys, the ureters. There's your bladder with the umbilical arteries, penis, just different view. A good shot of the testis and the epididymis, and the ductus deferens, etc. And there's a female. You can see, again, kidneys, abdominal aorta right there. Now, here's her umbilical arteries. Remember, the bladder's in the middle. And this is like leading up towards the belly button. This is the bladder coming down. And it's going to join, drained by the ureter. And so this kind of like little space back there, you kind of see these little horns coming out, these little squiggly things. Those are the uterine horns. Okay, you see that uterine horn, the squiggly thing here. There's two of them, squiggly here. Now, in a human, it kind of looks like fallopian tubes, but they're not. A human just has like one uterus, but the pig, since it has, multiple offspring per birth, the bunch of little piglets are born. Humans, most human births are just one baby. Okay, I know you can have twins and triplets and so forth, but most of the time it's just one. Most of the time in pigs, it's a bunch. And so this is how their uterus is. And cats and dogs and a lot of things that have litters are the exact same way. Their uterus is broken into right and left horns. And so there's a horn here and a horn here. So this is the left horn. That's the right horn. So a bunch of little pigs developing in there. And then the actual fallopian tube, what we call the uterine tube or the oviduct, is at the end. A little tightly coiled thing here, but they don't label it yet, but we'll see it. Okay, anyway, that's that. And of course, the ovary, it's that little bean looking thing right here. And it's underneath there somewhere. There's that. Just another view of the female. Here's her uterine. This is the right uterine horn, left uterine horn. Right ovary, left ovary, and they kind of come together and they form the body of the uterus. And the body of the uterus kind of narrows and segues. Well, it expands out. It's narrow, but then it expands out to form the vagina. So this is the body of the uterus. Okay, they kind of widen it out. This thing coming across like that, which is one of the ureters coming from the kidney. Anyway, body of the uterus and then vagina. And then in pigs, it's different than a human. Normally, in a human, the vagina just opens up to the outside. But in a pig and most other female mammals, placental mammals anyway, the bladder, of course, drained by the urethra. And in humans, the urethra opens up the outside in a separate opening from the vagina. But in pigs, like I said, most other female mammals, it merges with the vagina. It forms this little common chamber right here. It's called the urogenital sinus. And so you can kind of see that. Here's the bladder and then urethra, and it kind of taps in right there. So urogenital, so it's for urinary and reproductive system. So if you look at the posterior end of the pig, there's two holes, not three, but two. There's the anus and a urogenital orifice. That's why dogs and cats and pigs will have just one female hole, right? Because that's where urine comes out and where babies come out in the same place, okay? And so, but that little bitty common space is the urogenital sinus. So in lab, what we do is we would open that up and we can look in to actually see where the vagina and the urethra come together. But I think this is all you can see in here. So that's that. So that's a pretty good PowerPoint. And I like it because it has the pictures next to the diagrams and pictures side by side. Now look at the second one. They set some good photos in part one, but it doesn't have the corresponding diagrams. And I think these are his pigs from the lab that he actually photographed. which he did a pretty good job. So let's have a look at that. I gotta fix my display here. Hang on. So again, he put my name on. I can't take credit for this, although I'm flattered that he did put my name on it. But one of these days, I'm gonna have to look his name up. Anyway, he zoomed through. I'm sure he graduated high school with honors, and he just zoomed through his undergrad and got accepted to medical school right off the bat. And I was not surprised. He was a really good student. Anyway, again, this is dissected of the throat. You can see the thymus gland on either side, and there's the thyroid gland right in the middle. The only drawback here is there's nothing here for reference, so you can go back and you can maybe look at your printout, and kind of see for reference, what these things are and where they're supposed to be, or study that first illustration first, the first PowerPoint first. Again, and like I said, I'll use these pictures on your practical, so just make sure you're familiar with what's what. Again, in the throat, there's the larynx, the voice box, and then the trachea, and then behind the trachea is the esophagus there. And then here's the anterior end of the pig's head. There's the heart and lungs, and then the diaphragm's here, and then there's the liver. Underneath the liver, large intestine, small intestines, and just the other organs, spleen. There's the bladder. Remember, on either side of the bladder, you're going to have the umbilical arteries, etc. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then again, the pig's kind of, everything's backward from how I see it and how you see it. So it's kind of oriented like this, with the head on this end. So the liver is all kind of like reflected up. And see, there's a pin right there holding it up. And so you look up underneath the liver, and then there's the gallbladder, and it's going to narrow to form a. Here it says bile duct, which is incorrect. I mean, that's the cystic duct, but that's okay. Bile duct or cystic duct. I'll let that slide. But then you can see the stomach here, and then this kind of chunky cottage cheese looking stuff, that's the pancreas. More pancreas right here, again, underneath the stomach, on top of the large intestine. Kind of a view from the left side of the pig. There's the liver, there's the spleen. You can see across the large intestine, the small intestine way over there. Good shot. There's female one, if you're looking at the female, got some of the guts kind of pushed over to the right side. This is a left aspect, kind of looking at the angle. Of course, there's the bladder and umbilical arteries. And then down in that little space, that's where you can see the uterine horns emerging. And there's the end of the uterine horn is the ovary. This would be the left one, and of course the right one's going over that way. And female, again, this is looking straight at it. The legs would be down this way, and then up here's the diaphragm would be like up around this area. This is looking down in the pelvic cavity. You can see the uterine horns. And there's the ovary body of the uterus where the uterine horns come together. This is a close-up, the same thing at the base of the bladder here, umbilical arteries. This is the right uterine horn coming this way, left uterine horn going that way, and at the ends, that's where you can see the ovary. That's over there. That's a good shot. It's kind of just another view, a different angle. Now he's pointing out the urogenital sinus, the vagina, and the urethra. See the vagina and the urethra. Here's the urethra, the vagina, and then see when they come together. Urogenital sinus. Okay. In the background, that's the large intestine or the colon, and of course there's the bladder right there. And this is the left umbilical artery right on the side of it. Another female, again, just another view. You can see some blood vessels. The aorta, and then a branch of the aorta, that's the external iliac, heading out towards the leg. And then remember, there's an internal iliac, but then the large, basically extension of it is the umbilical artery on either side. So this is the left side. So left external iliac, left umbilical artery, and then there's the bladder. And then right stuff is all on the other side, just covered up. This is funny. I left it like this. I didn't edit this at all. He put it together. He says male, I think, and he's true. This is a male. And he pointed out the stuff. Here's the bladder and the umbilical arteries, seminal vesicles at the base of the bladder, and then this is the urethra coming down, and then just right before the urethra exits as the penis, you can see there's a bulbal urethral gland right there. Then this is just some parts of the heart and branches of the heart and vessels. There's the pulmonary trunk, right? And then there's the ductus arteriosus that joins with the aortic arch. The aortic arch is in the background right there. And this coming off, that's the first branch of the aortic arch, the brachiocephalic trunk or artery, and then the left subclavian. Okay, and then it continues as the aorta, the thoracic aorta, etc. And then you can see barely see a little. This would be the left pulmonary artery, right here. And then of course there's the heart. This is a close up, the same thing, cleaned up a little bit better. Pulmonary trunk, ductus arteriosus, and of course in the background right here, that's the aorta. First branch of the aorta, brachiocephalic artery or trunk, and the left subclavian. Pulmonary, this is the right pulmonary, no, this is the left pulmonary artery. And a coronary artery, that's on the surface of the heart. And I think that's it. Okay, here's the anterior view. It's like the head up here. You can kind of get the heart kind of pushed over to one side, so you can kind of see some of the veins. The veins never really turn out as good as the arteries because the walls are much more delicate, and when they inject them, a lot of times they get destroyed. But you can see some. So the apex of the heart is kind of pushed over. So you're kind of looking behind the heart. This is the posterior vena cava. And the anterior vena cava is like right here, but it's kind of obliterated. And then those would be the brachiocephalic veins coming to form the anterior vena cava and the posterior vena cava, but they're both coming together into the right atrium in the back of the heart right there. Okay, there's that. Now this is kind of like looking from the side. The anterior view is over here, so the head's over here, and this is going down towards the heart. So there's the top of the heart. So you get your bearings. There's a trachea in the middle. Either side of the trachea, that's where you get your common carotid. So this is the left common carotid, the right common carotid. And then the blue ones next to it would be the internal jugulars. What do you label those? What is he labeling? Oh, this is like the other branches of the aortic arch. Brachiocephalic trunk and the left subclavian artery, aortic arch, right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and of course left ventricle there. That's all good. It's nice, isn't it? He did all this. Look at the kidneys. Kidneys, anything renal is going to go to the kidneys. So the blue ones going to the kidneys would be renal veins, and the red ones, I guess it's not blue, so it's got to be red. You kind of see it's kind of red there. Renal arteries, these are renal veins. Of course, the big one in the middle would be the posterior vena cava, and the big kind of reddish one in the middle would be the abdominal aorta. Okay. Just kind of close up with the kidney, renal artery, some other familiar stuff, umbilical. This is that's not supposed to be there. Anyway, this is a male. You can't see anything. This is a good shot right here, just kind of looking. Of course, there's the tail end and heart, liver, and you can kind of see the kidney right there, renal vein, ureter draining the, from the kidney to the bladder. You can see the bladder right there. That's good. More veins, anterior vena cava, branches of it. These are branches beyond the brachiocephalic veins. Subclavian going out to the arm, and the internal external jugulars. And you can see the posterior vena cava there in the background. The end. So that's pretty good. So what y'all think about that? Y'all think you can study those images and answer questions about them next week? Half your testing me on that. So you 25 questions, half of 25 is what, 12 and a half. So 10 to 12 questions are going to come from the pig. And then the rest are going to come from all the other human stuff. They're all pictures, right? And it's multiple choice. So just practice looking at them, familiarize yourself, and that's it. So no questions. Let me look at y'all for a sec. Where'd you go? Are y'all still there? Maybe I got to do something like, where are y'all? Somebody say something.
Sir.
I can hear you. I can't see you. Okay. Hang on. I made you disappear, but there's a way to make you come back.
You see me?
Let's see. I'm not sure. Anyway, I don't know where you guys went. Made you disappear, but I wish I knew how to make you come back. But do you guys have any questions?
No, sir.
All good. Let me see.
I'm good.
Let me see. Can I do this? I think I made. Okay, there we go. There. I made you. Somehow I was able to make you. So now I can see you guys. And yeah, I see Nathan. I see Hunter putting his hat on backwards. And okay, yeah. So you guys are good. Is anybody interested in taking comparative anatomy in 1 year from now? Is anybody gonna be here next year?
I'll be here next year.
You'll be here?
I'll be here.
What's your major?
I think so. Biology. So I gotta take all kind of shit. So I think I'll be in your class again.
What's your plans? What do you plan to do with a degree in biology?
Well, I want to do. So LSU doesn't have kinesiology, so I'm gonna do biology over here and then switch over kinesiology when I go to UL.
Yeah. Well, so you want to get you want to go to PT
Physical
school?
therapy.
Is that what you want to do? Physical therapy?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, your first year in PT school is first semester you take gross anatomy, and so a good primer for gross anatomy is to have comparative anatomy under your belt. It's going to help you out a lot. But
All
Nathan,
right.
what's your major?
I'm a biology major, planning on going to med school.
Med school. Well, you can't get in medical school without comparative anatomy.
I actually don't believe that's true. I've never seen anatomy listed as a prerequisite on med school's websites.
Comparative anatomy, not human anatomy. Yeah, it's one of those things. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, kind of thing. Because if you get an interview, they'll ask you about comparative anatomy, and a lot of students try to avoid it. And you'll be asked, well, why didn't you take comparative anatomy? And well, because that's a hard class. Go back and take it. I can show you. I got a wall of letters from students that are in med school that talk about how important comparative anatomy was for them to get in. So it's. I see a resurgence of students wanting to take it because I think people were kind of avoiding it and they're having trouble getting in. LSU it's all the schools in the state, we have more students get in med school than any other school based on our size, like per capita. So we do a fine job of getting kids in. And so I would highly recommend it. You know, you could.
Yeah, I'll definitely consider it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Talk to some other folks about it. But anyway, Brody and Deborah, what are you guys doing?
Yeah,
There's
Brody, what are
Brody.
you doing, Brody?
Huh?
Biochemistry major.
Biochem? Are you going to medical school?
Yes, sir, for pharmacy.
Sweet. Well, you got to take comparative anatomy. You know, that's a must. What about you, Deborah? What's your major?
I'm a biology major. My name is Deborah. And
Oh, Deborah. Okay.
yes. And I'm trying to get into vet school.
Vet school. Well, there you go. You know, they have a lot of vets under my belt, and comparative anatomy is another good one to have. Learning the anatomy of all your critters. You know. So you gonna be here next year?
I think so. Yes, sir.
What about you, Brody? You gonna be here next year? Probably. Yeah. So.
Sir.
Yeah. In the let's see. This is the well. Wait a minute. This is the spring. Yeah. See that y'all run into that trap because you took biology 1208 in the spring where you're normally supposed to take it in the fall, because 1202 and 1209 are usually offered only in the spring. You know, maybe they'll offer it. Well, I get you would know, right? Or y'all they're not offering 1202 and 1209 in the fall, are they?
Oh, yeah, I'm taking both. I mean, yeah, you're saying biology 2 and biolab 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking both in the fall.
Yeah, I'm taking both in the fall.
Oh, that is right. Yeah, they are. Yeah, so you'll be good. Yeah, once you take that, and then also, I think I'm going to put comparative anatomy back on the books, and then I'm going to put either cell biology or genetics on the book as well in the spring. I'm the one that makes out the schedule, so that's how I'm able to do that. But yeah, so you guys, if you're getting like degrees in biology or whatever, you're going to need some sophomore level biologies, and so you can get those under your belt. You know, like comparative genetics, cell physiology. You know, you can do all that here at LSUE, and we haven't been offering them because we just haven't had a lot of freshmen that were sticking around for their sophomore years. But like I said, we're having a resurgence of sophomores. So you guys are going to be around, then I'll put those things on the book so you can stay here and knock out some of your sophomore biology here in Eunice before you go on to Baton Rouge or wherever you want to go. So anyway, so I will cut y'all loose unless you guys have any other questions. And hey, if you have questions or whatever between now and next week, you know, just shoot me an email or whatever. And or if you have questions about PPHMA or comparative anatomy or whatever, I'm your guy. So, well, good luck, everybody. And you know where to find me.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
See y'all next week.